The Orchard Estate and Smallville Home Park formed a close-knit community where neighbors were more like extended family. Children grew up together, forming lifelong bonds. Among them was 8-year-old Sandra Cantu, who lived with her mother, Maria, along with her sisters, Miranda and Simone, and her brother, Thomas. Sandra shared a particularly special connection with those around her. She was full of energy and joy, often seen running around the neighborhood, immersed in play. Gymnastics was one of her favorite activities, and she enjoyed spending time with her friends, embracing the carefree spirit of childhood. Academically, Sandra excelled. She consistently received good grades and was well regarded by both her teachers and classmates. On the day in question, the community followed its usual rhythm. Children attended school and participated in their daily activities, unaware of the events that would soon unfold. After school, it was routine for Sandra to head outside and play with her friends. It was a familiar rhythm for the children in the neighborhood, returning home, greeting their parents, and heading back out with the understanding that they'd return when dinner was ready or when called. That afternoon, Sandra dressed in her favorite Hello Kitty t-shirt. She was especially fond of the character at the time. It was a small but joyful part of her personality, a reflection of the things she loved during her childhood. Later that day, as one of the neighborhood children was called in for dinner, Sandra's absence was quickly noticed. A family member went to look for her, but after about 45 minutes of searching with no sign of her, concern began to rise. Her mother and older sister began combing through the nearby park and surrounding area, but Sandra was nowhere to be found. Panic began to set in. Her mother became hysterical, overwhelmed by fear and uncertainty. Sandra wasn't at the trailer park, she wasn't with friends, and no one seemed to know where she had gone. The once common assumption that she might be playing a game or hiding no longer felt plausible. The family's growing fear was echoed by the community as the unsettling realization began to take hold. Something was terribly wrong. At 7:54 p.m., a 911 call was received from Maria Chavez, reporting her 8-year-old daughter, Sandra Cantu, as missing. Maria explained that Sandra had last been seen playing at a friend's home located at the northwest corner of the trailer park. However, after checking with all of Sandra's friends and receiving no information about her whereabouts, Maria became increasingly concerned and contacted authorities. While law enforcement often receives reports of missing persons, cases involving minors are treated with heightened urgency. Due to the child's age, immediate action is taken. For officers, each situation is approached with a mindset of cautious preparedness, hoping for the best but planning for the worst. Upon arrival at the Cantu residence, responding officers immediately began their investigation. The lead officer approached the home and knocked on the door, marking the beginning of what would become a deeply unsettling case. Maria Chavez told officers that Sandra had come home from school around 3 p.m. and asked to play at a friend's house, something she often did. She was last seen wearing black leggings and a pink Hello Kitty t-shirt. It quickly became clear that Sandra wouldn't have left the mobile home park on her own. Detective Bauer confirmed she wasn't at home or with friends. The search expanded beyond the park. K-9 units were brought in to track her scent. The dogs picked up her trail and led investigators out of the trailer park. The scent trail led the K-9 units to Clover Road. One dog turned west in the direction of Sandra's school, while the other turned east toward the main road leading to the freeway. This development raised serious concern. If Sandra had left the trailer park heading east, whether on foot, by bike, or in a vehicle, locating her would become significantly more difficult. With the dog search yielding inconclusive results, investigators returned to the Cantu residence the following morning. At that point, law enforcement began systematically interviewing family members, looking for any detail that might explain why Sandra had gone missing, whether she had run away or been abducted. During one of these interviews, Sandra's grandfather, Joe, revealed that he had recently installed surveillance cameras after an incident of vandalism involving his van. One of the cameras, mounted at Sandra's residence, faced both the front porch and the street. Investigators knew the footage could provide critical information: what Sandra was wearing, whether she was alone, and if anyone had been with her when she disappeared. Video surveillance can often reveal critical clues, and investigators knew this footage could be key. The entire DVR system was collected from the Cantu residence and taken back to the police department for analysis. Each clip was reviewed carefully, frame by frame. The footage showed Sandra arriving home from school, stepping out of the family car, and walking up to the porch, consistent with her family's account. At 2:57 p.m., Sandra is seen exiting the house, skipping cheerfully and briefly greeting her brother before heading back inside. The video matched reports that she had been playing near trailer number 9, located across from her home. Moments later, Sandra reappears on camera, again skipping. Then something draws her attention. She pauses and looks south toward the far end of the street. What she saw remains unclear, whether it was a person, a vehicle, or something else. She then walks out of the camera's view and does not return. At approximately 6:30 p.m., surveillance footage captured Sandra's mother, Maria, and her older sister, Simone, getting into the family vehicle to search the trailer park in an effort to locate Sandra before contacting authorities. Shortly afterward, Maria placed a 911 call to report her daughter missing. As police arrived on scene, members of the close-knit community joined the search, canvassing nearby trailers and surrounding streets within the mobile home park. Simone, deeply concerned for her younger sister, was actively involved in the search efforts. Recognizing Simone's strong connection with Sandra and her reputation for being street smart, investigators spoke with her directly. She was asked a series of pointed questions. Did she know what happened to her sister? Could she recall where Sandra might have gone? Simone responded that she didn't know and could only speculate. Her answers, though limited, were part of the larger effort to piece together the timeline and circumstances surrounding Sandra's disappearance. Simone spoke with unwavering certainty. She told investigators that Sandra would never have left the trailer park unless she was accompanied by a family member or an adult she deeply trusted. Her conviction left a strong impression. Something bad had happened to Sandra. However, Simone was unable to identify anyone who might be responsible or suggest a direction for the investigation. As the search intensified, law enforcement issued a public appeal for information. A dedicated tip line was set up and publicized through a press release, urging anyone with knowledge about Sandra's whereabouts or last known location to come forward. Detective Bauer revisited Sandra's mother, Maria, seeking additional leads. It was confirmed that Sandra's father lived out of town and had been separated from Maria for many years. According to Maria, Sandra had not seen her father in a long time, and she expressed no concerns regarding his potential involvement. Investigators noted this but did not consider him a likely suspect based on available information. Although Maria expressed no concern about Sandra's father being involved in her disappearance, investigators could not immediately rule him out, as parental involvement is a common consideration in missing child cases. Shortly after the investigation began, Sandra's father voluntarily came forward. He arrived at the police department, visibly distressed and eager to assist. He expressed deep concern and repeatedly stated his determination to find his daughter, even if it meant searching on his own. Investigators urged him to allow law enforcement to handle the search professionally and assured him that every lead would be followed. As part of standard procedure, Sandra's father's whereabouts at the time of her disappearance were thoroughly examined. Investigators, in coordination with the FBI, confirmed that Sandra's father was at work on the day of her disappearance. His alibi was verified through both his employer and cell phone records, allowing authorities to shift their focus elsewhere. Attention then turned to a new person of interest, a karate instructor who resided within the trailer park. Sandra's family reported a disturbing incident from 1 to 2 years earlier, in which the man had kissed Sandra on the lips at the community swimming pool. Given that Sandra had been only 6 years old at the time, the incident raised significant concern among investigators and prompted further scrutiny. Detectives interviewed the karate instructor, who claimed the kiss had been innocent and without intent. In collaboration with the FBI Evidence Response Team, authorities searched his trailer for any indication that Sandra had been there. During the search, they discovered a red substance on the floor that was suspected to be blood. The sample was sent to the lab for analysis. The instructor's alibi was that he had been teaching a karate class at his studio on the north side of town on the evening Sandra disappeared. While investigators worked to verify this claim and awaited lab results, they began preparing for the worst-case scenario. Given the time that had passed, law enforcement deemed it necessary to search the city's landfill. The concern was that if Sandra had met with foul play, evidence such as her clothing or personal belongings might be found there. During the search, an officer discovered a Hello Kitty shirt matching the one Sandra was last seen wearing. The findings significantly escalated concerns about the outcome of the case. The discovery of the Hello Kitty shirt initially raised fears that Sandra's body might also be located in the landfill. However, further examination revealed the shirt was not a match. It was the wrong size and color. This finding reignited a sense of hope among investigators that Sandra might still be alive. At the police station, the karate instructor's alibi was confirmed, and forensic tests showed the red substance found in his trailer did not match Sandra. As a result, he was officially ruled out as a suspect. Later that evening, the community gathered for a candlelight vigil, coming together to pray for Sandra's safe return. For many, the vigil was not only a moment of unity, but also a way to restore faith and hope during an emotionally trying time. It was a powerful moment to witness the community come together in such large numbers. Many detectives, including those assigned to the case, remained on the outskirts of the vigil, quietly observing. The hope was that either Sandra or the person responsible for her disappearance might be drawn to the gathering. At approximately 8:30 p.m., a significant development occurred. A woman named Melissa, a resident of Trailer 57, approached one of the officers. She appeared visibly shaken and reported that she had discovered a note. Melissa explained that while walking northbound along the sidewalk on her street, she had come across the note and believed it could be connected to Sandra's case. The note discovered by Melissa read, "Cantu, locked in stolen suitcase, thrown in water, Bachetti Road, Whitehall Road," and was signed witness. This marked a pivotal moment in the investigation, as previous interviews throughout the trailer park had yielded few substantial leads. The timing and placement of the note raised suspicions, especially given the windy conditions that evening, making it unlikely the note had simply been stumbled upon. This incident also brought Melissa Huckabee to the forefront of the investigation. Prior to this, she had not played a significant role. FBI investigators conducted an in-depth interview with her that night, during which they uncovered her close proximity to Sandra's residence, only 8 trailers down the same street. It was also revealed that Sandra and her sister frequently visited Huckabee's trailer to play with her daughter, highlighting an existing relationship between the families. Melissa Huckabee stated that on the afternoon Sandra went missing, she had gone to her grandfather's nearby church to prepare for Sunday school, where she served as a teacher. While her account was being reviewed, investigators processed the note for fingerprints and formally added Melissa to the list of persons of interest. Following the directions in the note, search and rescue teams were dispatched to drainage ponds located approximately 3 miles outside of town. These ponds, unlike lakes or rivers, were heavily compacted with manure, rendering them unsuitable for diving and severely limiting visibility. Despite extensive efforts, no suitcase or evidence linked to Sandra was recovered. With no solid leads and time slipping away, investigators grew increasingly concerned that the opportunity to find Sandra alive was diminishing. 8-year-old Sandra Cantu had now been missing for 3 days. Detectives turned their focus back to the last known footage of her, meticulously reviewing the surveillance video for subtle clues. Investigators believed that Sandra's actions in the footage might hold critical information, an unspoken message about where she was headed and whom she intended to see. Among the 13 trailers located south of Sandra's home, There was only one place she would typically visit beyond her own residence: Melissa Huckabee's trailer. Detectives attempted to re-interview Huckabee, but discovered she was no longer at home. It was revealed that she had checked herself into a hospital after reportedly swallowing a razor blade, an act that raised immediate concern. In response, authorities stationed a surveillance team at the hospital to monitor her closely, ensuring they would be alerted if she attempted to leave. Then, at approximately 10:30 a.m. on Monday, a call came through from dispatch with a message indicating that something significant was unfolding. A 911 call from the sheriff's department triggered an urgent response. Detectives immediately rushed to a pond located at the intersection of Bassetti Road and Whitehall Road, the same location referenced in the anonymous note. The realization was immediate and chilling. This was the exact area the note had mentioned. Upon arrival, officers spotted an object floating in the water. Sergeant Knight confirmed it appeared to be a suitcase. When asked whether he believed Sandra could be inside, his response was cautious. It's 50-50. Despite the hope that the discovery would not confirm their worst fears, instinct suggested otherwise. A growing sense of dread signaled that this could be the heartbreaking breakthrough in the case. As the suitcase was taken to the medical examiner's office for examination, detectives expanded their investigation to the surrounding area of Whitehall Road. At the far eastern end of the road, they interviewed a male resident who reported a peculiar encounter from a couple of weeks earlier. He recalled seeing a purple SUV parked near the ponds by the tree line, an unfamiliar vehicle in an area where he typically recognized all local traffic. The unusual presence prompted him to stop and investigate. Informing his wife of his intent, he approached the vehicle to get a better look. As he circled toward the driver's side, he took note of a spare tire mounted on the back of the SUV. Just as he neared the front of the vehicle, he heard a noise coming from the nearby trees, an unsettling detail that would soon take on greater significance. The man glanced to his left and saw a woman emerging from the bushes. He approached her and asked what she was doing. She casually replied that she had stopped to relieve herself. Though he found the situation unusual, especially in such a remote area, he dismissed it as odd but harmless, thinking perhaps she simply couldn't wait. He chose not to report the incident at the time, believing it was inconsequential. However, that encounter would later become a critical piece of the puzzle. At the coroner's office, forensic specialists began examining the suitcase retrieved from the pond. It was a black and gray Eddie Bauer model, standard in size and secured tightly with white cords. As investigators carefully unzipped the luggage, their worst fears were confirmed. Sandra Cantu was inside. She was still dressed in her leggings and Hello Kitty shirt, the same clothes she was last seen wearing. The coroner's findings were devastating. Sandra had been drugged, suffocated, and assaulted in a deeply personal way. The harrowing reality of the crime sent shockwaves through the investigative team and community alike. This was not just a missing persons case, it was now a homicide. And for her mother, Maria Chavez, the loss was beyond comprehension. For any parent, the discovery was a nightmare beyond imagining. The moment authorities confirmed Sandra's body had been found, it shattered the fragile hope her family clung to. Detectives had promised Maria Chavez early on that she would never learn about major developments through the media, and they kept that promise. But the emotional toll of that moment was immense. The news hit like a tidal wave. Shock, screams, tears, a grief so profound it felt as if their world had collapsed. As the investigation deepened, attention turned once again to Melissa Huckabee, who remained in the hospital. Detectives reviewed surveillance footage from the day Sandra went missing, hoping for answers. At 3:42 p.m., a female figure was captured walking from the south and getting into a small SUV parked near Sandra's home. Moments later, the vehicle drove back in the direction from which she came. The SUV stood out, two-toned in color, likely purple, with a distinctive spare tire mounted on the rear. The image matched the description given by the witness who had seen the suspicious vehicle near the drainage ponds. This sighting would prove to be a significant piece of evidence in linking Melissa Huckabee to the case. The purple SUV captured on surveillance matched the description of the vehicle seen near the pond where Sandra's body was discovered. Just 20 minutes later, that same SUV was observed leaving the trailer park. At 5:26 p.m., it traveled northbound, heading directly toward the area where the suitcase had been found. Out of all the vehicles that left the trailer park that day, Only one fit that profile, a purple SUV registered to Melissa Huckabee. With growing suspicions, Sergeant Knight and his partner went to the hospital to speak with Melissa for the first time in depth. During the conversation, she appeared visibly anxious. When asked whether she had heard the news about Sandra's body being discovered, she acknowledged the report and expressed sadness. However, her behavior struck the detectives as unusual. Despite claiming to be heartbroken, she never shed a tear. Melissa had mentioned that one of her suitcases had gone missing, around the same time Sandra disappeared from the trailer park. She expressed guilt, suggesting a connection between the two events. When Melissa described the missing suitcase, it matched perfectly with the one found in the pond. Detectives, however, chose not to reveal that detail to her at the time. The case was starting to come together, and investigators felt they were closing in. Upon Melissa's release from the hospital, a search warrant was issued for her trailer. In her bedroom, detectives discovered a notebook. The torn page from that notebook closely matched the paper used in the anonymous note Melissa claimed to have found, a crucial link in the investigation. With no physical evidence of foul play found at her home, the search extended to the church where Melissa worked as a Sunday school teacher. Inside the Sunday school room where Melissa Huckabee taught, detectives noticed something unusual. Every window had intact drawstring cords with plastic pull caps, except for one. The cord on that window appeared to have been cut, and the cap was missing. This detail stood out as the cord closely resembled the one used to secure the suitcase containing Sandra's body. Further investigation revealed a bottle of isopropyl alcohol at the church, the same substance later found in Sandra's liver. In the kitchen, a detective discovered a rolling pin with a bent handle. Under alternative light testing, it tested presumptively positive for bodily fluids. This final piece of evidence helped confirm that the assault and other criminal acts had occurred inside the church, marking a critical turning point in the investigation. On Friday, April 10th, Detective Bauer conducted an interview with Melissa Huckabee. At the outset, Huckabee appeared calm and composed, sitting with her legs crossed and speaking casually about the events surrounding Sandra's disappearance.
I mean, I have nothing to hide. I didn't do anything wrong.
Approximately 3.5 hours into the interview, the tone shifted as Detective Bauer began pressing harder, presenting the mounting evidence.
It was stolen.
Who stole it?
I don't know.
Who would have found him? Nobody took your suitcase. You're the only one you were the last person to see your suitcase. It's not ironic that you were the last person to see your suitcase and no one else saw your suitcase get stolen? And it's not ironic that this is your suitcase here. It's not ironic that Sandra, your daughter's best friend, someone you look at as your daughter, was found in this suitcase.
It was only after being directly confronted with the facts that Huckabee's demeanor changed, and she eventually broke down.
Between 5:30 and 5:40, two people saw your car stopped on Whitehall Road. And they saw you come from out of the bushes. What were you doing, Melissa?
It was an accident. I can't live with myself. I deserve to just die.
Tell me what happened.
Sandra was walking down the road. Sandra was walking and she saw me. And she came up to the car and she saw my suitcase. And my suitcase was inside of my car on the back seat.
Mm-hmm.
And like I told you before, she likes to hide and play hide and go seek.
Mm-hmm.
And she hid inside of there and I didn't know. I told her I had to go into the house. So I drove to the church.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I came outside, I looked at my suitcase. And I went to take it out and it was heavy. And she was in there. And she wasn't breathing or anything.
Her initial explanations were quickly discredited. Investigators had already established that Sandra had been drugged and attacked in a deeply personal way, details that directly contradicted Huckabee's account. Her story was deemed inconsistent and implausible in light of the evidence. The case against Melissa Huckabee came together with devastating clarity. The witness who saw her at the ponds the night Sandra disappeared was a critical piece of the puzzle, reinforcing the forensic and circumstantial evidence investigators had already gathered. With everything pointing to Huckabee, the surveillance footage, the matching SUV, the notebook paper, the blind cords, the isopropyl alcohol, the suitcase, and her own conflicting statements, authorities were confident they had their suspect. Melissa Huckabee was arrested and charged with the kidnapping, assault of a deeply personal nature, and murder of 8-year-old Sandra Cantu. A year later, as the trial began, prosecutors presented their theory. Sandra, likely trusting Huckabee as a neighbor and Sunday school teacher, willingly got into the purple SUV. The suitcase was in the back seat. Huckabee lured Sandra to the church under the guise of helping decorate for Sunday school. At the church, Huckabee gave Sandra a drink laced with benzodiazepines, rendering her unconscious. What followed was a horrific sequence of abuse. Sandra was ultimately killed, placed in the suitcase, which was bound with the cord from the blinds, and then disposed of in a drainage pond filled with manure. Mid-trial, faced with overwhelming evidence and likely to avoid the death penalty, Melissa Huckabee pleaded guilty to kidnapping and murder. The plea meant no full trial would play out in court, sparing Sandra's family and the community the pain of hearing the details in full. But it also left many with unanswered questions about motive and what exactly drove Huckabee to commit such a heinous act. In exchange for her guilty plea, prosecutors agreed to drop the charge related to a deeply personal assault. Melissa Huckabee was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Her motives remain unclear, and her actions are widely regarded as senseless and deeply disturbing. The murder of 8-year-old Sandra Cantu was an act of incomprehensible cruelty, one that defied reason and shocked an entire community. Sandra's disappearance and tragic death brought the town of Tracy together in grief and solidarity. To the people of Tracy, Sandra was more than just a neighbor. She was seen as everyone's child. Her vibrant spirit and joyful presence had touched many lives in her short 8 years. The loss of such a young, innocent life left a profound void, a painful reminder of what was taken and what could have been. Over time, the pain softened for some, but the memory of Sandra remains deeply embedded in the hearts of those who knew and loved her. Her story serves as a lasting reminder of the fragility of life and the enduring strength of a community united in love, mourning, and remembrance. What do you think motivates someone to commit such a senseless and tragic crime? And can justice ever truly be served in cases like this? How can communities come together to protect their most vulnerable members and support families affected by such tragedies? Thank you for watching. If this story moved you or made you think, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective on this heartbreaking case. Stay safe, stay aware, and we'll see you in the next one. A bright, popular schoolgirl vanished without a trace. All signs pointed to one chilling possibility: abduction. Panic swept through the community. Fear turned to dread. For her family, it was the unthinkable. A nightmare came to life. Days turned into nights filled with terror. It was hell and heartbreaking. The pressure was mounting. The investigator was determined to find the missing girl, no matter what it took. Just when the investigation hit a dead end, a new witness came forward, someone who could finally reveal the truth. All was calm in the small town of Star City. 16-year-old Skylar Neese returned home, exhausted after a long, late shift at the local diner. Skylar's mother, Mary Neese, recalled their last conversation that night, said she was tired and mentioned she was heading to bed. She kissed her mother on the cheek, and Mary told her they loved her before wishing her good night. It was a simple, familiar exchange, one that would later carry a heartbreaking weight. The next morning, Skylar's father, David Neese, returned home after a night shift to lend his daughter a car. David Neese, Skylar's father, recalled the moment he arrived home. He knocked on her door, calling out, "Skylar, honey, it's Daddy. You'll have to get ready and take me back to work if you want the car." But there was no response. The door was locked. In frustration, he grabbed a coat hanger and managed to pop it open. But when he entered Skylar's room, It was empty. A sinking feeling grew inside him. Something was wrong. Her bed hadn't been slept in, and a wave of panic started to settle in. David immediately called Mary at work, asking, "Do you know where Skylar is?" Her reply was a no. Mary wasn't as immediately worried. She calmly told David to relax, reassuring him that they would find Skylar. After all, Skylar was often at friends' houses or out at birthday parties. Mary suggested David call some of her friends to check if she was with them, maybe out shopping or swimming. The next call was to Skylar's best friend, Sheila Eddy. David asked, "Have you seen Skylar?" Sheila replied, "No." When asked when they last spoke, she said, "Midnight last night." David's concern grew as he realized how long it had been. He replied, "Wow, okay, I'm starting to get really worried. I can't find her anywhere." A high achiever and loving daughter, Skylar's their pride and joy. David Neese described Skylar as spoiled rotten. He fondly remembered their special days together when Mary had to work and he didn't. They called it Skylar Daddy Day, a time when they could do anything Skylar wanted. As their only child, Skylar was devoted to her parents. Unlike many kids who often distance themselves from their parents, Skylar never did that. She made sure to tell them every day that she loved them. Meanwhile, Skylar's father stepped out onto the porch. As he looked down, he noticed a small black bench. Then he saw her window was open. A sinking feeling washed over him. "Oh no," he thought. "She must have snuck out last night." This wasn't the first time Skylar had rebelled. In Star City, the curfew was set at 11 p.m., and the goal was to keep teenagers safe, preventing parties and underage drinking to avoid accidents. But sometimes teenagers sneak out. It was nothing unusual for Skylar. When Mary heard the news, she didn't panic. Instead, she headed home to comfort David and come up with a plan. Skylar was the type to go to work even when she was sick, so Mary told David, "She's due at work by 4 o'clock. If she doesn't show up, we'll give her until then." 6 hours passed without a word. All they could do was pray that Skylar would show up at her job. About 10 minutes before they called the fast food place to ask if Skylar had shown up, they received a call. The voice on the other end asked, "Is Skylar coming to work today?" In that moment, they knew something was wrong. Skylar's father dialed 911, urgently stating, "My 16-year-old daughter is missing. We can't find her anywhere. Please, we need help." The Star City police quickly responded to the call, even though most cases of missing teens turned out to be false alarms. Typically, if a teen ran off on a Friday, they were back home by Monday, just wanting to have fun over the weekend without their parents' permission. But this time, something felt different. In this small town, the police were more than willing to help worried parents. They began their search by inspecting Skylar's bedroom, looking for any clues that might explain her sudden disappearance. The first thing the police noticed was Skylar's cell phone charger. Teenagers never go anywhere without their phone, and Skylar was no exception. Her contacts were still there, her toothbrush untouched, and there was no sign of any clothes being taken. Nothing seemed out of place. If she had run away, she would have taken something with her. The police had seen it all before, but Skylar's parents knew this wasn't just another typical case. Fearing the worst, they turned to the neighbors for help. They went door to door, block by block, asking if anyone had seen or heard anything. But no one had. The search came up empty. Star City was a tiny, sleepy town, so small that almost nothing happened without everyone knowing about it. That's why it was so hard for Skylar's parents when neighbors kept saying, "I haven't seen anything at all." It felt impossible that no one had noticed anything unusual. There had to be an explanation. Someone must know something. And then, right on cue, Skylar's best friend Sheila came forward. She hesitated, then said, "Mary, I have to tell you the truth." Mary, confused, asked, "The truth? What do you mean?" Sheila confessed, "Skylar, Rachel, and I snuck out last night." This confession confirmed the parents' growing suspicions. Skylar's mother immediately asked, "Where is Skylar? Where did you leave her?" At first, Mary thought Skylar had simply spent the night with one of her friends, but then Sheila continued, "When we came back, Skylar insisted that I stop at the end of the block, let her out, and she would walk home. She didn't want you to know she had snuck out. She didn't want you to hear her come in." Sheila claimed she dropped Skylar off around 11:45 p.m., and since then, none of the friends had seen or heard from her in over 18 hours. A terrifying thought began to take hold. If Skylar was left at the end of the block, then who could have taken her between that short walk from point A to point B? David was falling apart. Mary was overwhelmed with fear. Their 16-year-old daughter was missing, and no one had any idea where she could be. Mary was convinced Skylar had been abducted, and the thought left her terrified. It was every parent's worst nightmare. Sheila soon arrived at the Nice home, eager to help however she could. David looked at her and asked, "Sheila, are you sure you don't know where Skylar is?" She replied confidently, "I'm positive." A Star City police officer warned her, "Young lady, if you're lying, you're in serious trouble." Sheila stood firm. "I'm not lying." Just as panic was about to take over, Skylar's mother shifted into action. She remembered the apartment complex had security cameras. Turning to David, Mary said, "Let's call the landlord. Let's check the footage." If luck was on their side, those cameras might hold the final clues to Skylar's last known whereabouts. In the quiet town of Star City, West Virginia, teenager Skylar Nice had vanished without a trace. But in a surprising stroke of luck, a neighborhood surveillance camera may have captured everything. The parking lot camera, running 24/7, had suddenly become their best hope for answers. Police and Skylar's parents sat together, closely reviewing the video footage. They watched for hours, scanning every second. The footage played in real time, making the process painfully slow, but they knew any detail could be crucial. Around 12:30 a.m., a car slowly pulled up outside the apartment building. The footage was grainy and dark, the vehicle parked behind the building, hidden in the shadows. But it was the first real clue. David pointed at the screen and asked, "Is that you? Is that where you picked her up?" But Sheila shook her head. She explained they had picked Skylar up earlier, around 11 p.m., closer to the mailboxes near the parking area. They went for a short joyride just to hang out, and then everyone headed home. According to her, it was nothing out of the ordinary. The video revealed something no one saw coming. At 12:30 a.m., nearly 45 minutes after Sheila claimed to have picked her up, a car pulled up outside the apartment building. Moments later, Skylar's head suddenly appeared in the frame. She walked calmly down to the car and got in. Her parents felt a small wave of relief, thinking maybe she had simply left with a friend. But deep down, questions were starting to build. Detective Jessica Colbank closely examined the surveillance footage, analyzing every detail. The video showed a sedan pulling into the narrow drive between the two apartment buildings. The investigators' first real lead didn't come from the car itself, but from Skylar's behavior. She was practically running to the vehicle, which suggested she knew the person inside. This was a crucial clue. She wasn't hesitant or cautious, indicating she trusted the driver. This didn't look like an abduction. Could Skylar Nice have run away with someone she knew? It was always a possibility. Maybe there was something going on in her home life, or she had a secret boyfriend, or something else she hadn't shared. There were many unknowns, and investigators knew they needed to consider all possibilities. It had been 24 hours since Skylar was last seen, and despite the key piece of evidence, police were at a standstill. The images were too blurry to provide any solid leads. All they knew for sure was that it was a light-colored four-door sedan, but they couldn't make out the license plate, the make, or even the model. The only concrete fact was that Skylar had willingly gotten into that vehicle. That moment was the last known event they could document, and it was the only lead they had to work with. As 24 hours turned into 48, no new leads emerged. Skylar's parents were frantic, each passing day only deepening their anguish. The emotional toll was unbearable. It felt like a nightmare they couldn't wake up from. It was pure hell. It seemed like everything had come to a halt. The local police had seen Skylar get into the car willingly, and that was all they had to go on. To them, it pointed to her running away. But Skylar's parents felt powerless, believing that investigators weren't doing enough to find their daughter. It was incredibly frustrating for the investigators, too. They had no answers to any of the questions everyone was asking, except for one harsh reality. Skylar was still missing, and no one knew where she was. Desperate for any clue, David and Mary reached out to their community in every way they could. David even created his own webpage called Team Skylar to rally support. He wanted the local media to spread the word. With Skylar's face in the paper every day, he was determined to make sure people saw her picture, hoping someone would recognize her. Skylar's photo were distributed everywhere, filling the town in hopes of a breakthrough. Skylar was missing, and no one had heard from her. No one knew where she might be. To help ease the constant doubt, Sheila became a pillar of support for Skylar's parents. She was there nearly every day, offering comfort and reassurance. Her presence provided a small sense of hope in an otherwise heartbreaking situation. Sheila and Skylar had been best friends since they were 8 years old, sharing everything from laughter to late-night phone calls that would go on for hours. They were inseparable, always giggling and chatting nonstop if given the chance. Their bond was strong, and they truly loved spending time together. In freshman year, a new girl named Rachel moved to town and quickly became part of the inseparable trio with Skylar and Sheila. Things began to shift, and it was no longer just Skylar and Sheila. It was Skylar, Rachel, and Sheila, always together. They did everything as a group, with no one ever being left out. The bond between the three of them was unbreakable. Together, the trio quickly built a reputation for being wild. Partying and staying out late became the norm for them. It was far from the typical freshman experience. But now Rachel too isn't around. She miles away at church camp. 4 days had passed since Skylar's disappearance. In the meantime, David and Mary's media campaign gained momentum. The local news reported a missing teen, and soon the story spread rapidly across Facebook, catching fire and reaching an international audience. The Star City Police called with a potential lead, a sighting in North Carolina. A woman was certain she'd seen Skylar, accompanied by a girl with red hair. This new information gave hope that all the hard work might finally be paying off. If Skylar was with a red-haired girl, it could very well be Rachel. At the time, Rachel was supposed to be at church camp. However, it was always a possibility that she had skipped camp to run off with Skylar, perhaps to the beach, just to get away. It was the news the family had been praying for. They believed, with newfound hope, that they were finally going to bring Skylar home. In a small West Virginia town, authorities searched for 16-year-old Skylar Neese, a runaway last seen on security footage, willingly getting into a car in the dead of night. After days of dead ends, a new lead emerges. Skylar and her friend Rachel may have been spotted 600 miles away in North Carolina. As soon as David and Mary heard the news, they rushed to North Carolina, determined to bring Skylar home. It was the best news they had received since the very beginning. While the reasons behind Skylar's disappearance remained unclear, they knew she and Rachel had likely run off, searching for a place to stay. Just as David and Mary were preparing to hit the road, Detective Colbank received a call from dispatch. It wasn't Skylar. It wasn't Rachel. The two people spotted in North Carolina were runaways, but not the ones they were hoping for. The news hit hard. If that wasn't Skylar, it meant she was still out there, still missing. The search had to continue. 2 months had passed since she was last seen, and her disappearance sparked a wave of small-town gossip and speculation. Everyone had their own theories, but no one had the answers. As the police followed up on every lead, Skylar's good girl reputation began to take hits. Rumors started circulating that she had a secret boyfriend, one that her parents didn't know about. He was known to be a troublemaker, and whispers about their relationship added another layer of mystery to her sudden disappearance. If the rumor about the secret boyfriend was true, tracking him down could lead the police straight to Skylar. However, they needed a name to pursue. Skylar's classmates helped detectives by drawing up a list of her close male friends, hoping that one of them could provide the key to unlocking the mystery of her disappearance. 2 names repeatedly surfaced during the investigation: 20-year-old Dylan Conaway and his older brother Derek, who lived in nearby Blacksville. Schoolmates revealed that Skylar and Rachel had been known to hang out with them, often partying together. The Conaway brothers had a questionable reputation, known for hosting parties that attracted underage girls, including Sheila, Rachel, and Skylar. With this new information, Detective Colbank enlists the help of state police to dig deeper into the brothers' background and their potential connection to Skylar's disappearance. Coincidentally, around the same time Skylar disappeared, a bank in Blacksville, West Virginia was robbed, and the entire crime was captured on surveillance footage. The male subject in the bank robbery had entered carrying a firearm, demanding a substantial amount of cash before fleeing on foot. The surveillance footage helped the police build a profile of the suspect, and the primary suspects quickly became the Conaway brothers. This raised an unsettling possibility. What if Skylar had somehow gotten involved with a couple of bank robbers? The theory brought a new layer of concern to the already complicated investigation. Investigators arrived at the Conaway residence for a knock and talk and saw Derek Conway digging holes in the backyard. In an attempt to lighten the mood, one of the officers jokingly asked, "What are you doing, trying to bury a body?" Derek froze, his face showing a shock, which raised further suspicion. Investigators focused on uncovering the Conaway brothers' social circles, probing into their friendships, relationships, and any possible secrets. Despite their efforts, nothing solid emerged. However, a new connection to Skylar's case surfaced, offering a potential breakthrough. It was discovered that Sheila Eddy and Dylan Conaway, the younger brother, had actually dated. As the investigation progressed, pictures began to surface showing Sheila, Skylar, and Dylan Conaway together. Social networking sites provided a glimpse into the Conaway brothers' lives. Investigators discovered that the brothers were involved in various types of drugs, often offering them to females in an attempt to get them loosened up. Police began to speculate that Skylar may have been involved with this shady crowd, possibly even among the females who were given drugs. The focus shifts from the bank robbery to finding Skylar, as there might now be a connection. Then detectives catch a break when a new piece of gossip emerges, potentially explaining why Skylar sneaked out on the night of July 5th. Investigators began receiving anonymous tips, with people calling in to share information. They were told about a party in Blacksville, where drugs and pills were present, and allegedly Skylar's niece had attended the party on the night she disappeared. The investigators then considered the possibility that one of the individuals from Blacksville had picked her up after Sheila dropped her off, taking her to the party. Even if Skylar had been at the party, no one was speaking up. Investigators remained hopeful that eventually someone would call and reveal what they knew about the party and what happened to Skylar. But as time passed, no one came forward. The silence was baffling, leaving investigators wondering why no one was sharing any information about Skylar's whereabouts or what had happened that night. Police visited Rachel after she returned from church camp. Her nervous behavior raised red flags. It was clear to investigators that she knew more than she was letting on. They sensed something had happened at the party and that someone knew the truth about what happened to Skylar. But the fear of speaking up kept them silent. It was a gut feeling that they were hiding something, too afraid to come forward. Rachel firmly denies any involvement, claiming she never drove to Blacksville or attended a party with Skylar on the night she vanished. Despite everyone knowing who Skylar's close friends were and where she spent her time, no one can seem to identify the car seen in the surveillance footage. The lack of answers frustrates the investigators, leaving them wondering why no one can provide crucial information about the vehicle's owner. To track down the car, police retrace the route from Star City to Blacksville, passing through various shops and gas stations. Their attention lands on a newly built Sheetz convenience store, hoping its recent installation includes security cameras. The detectives decide to visit and ask the store manager for any footage, hoping to find new clues about the car's direction or identification. It's a breakthrough. The Sheetz convenience store has security cameras, and the manager provides access to the footage from the night Skylar disappeared. As the police watch the video, they spot the car, a silver four-door sedan, passing the Sheetz at 12:30 a.m. At 12:39 a.m., the same car is seen again. The detective exclaims, "That's it! That's the car!" New surveillance footage from a convenience store in Star City, West Virginia, provides a crucial breakthrough in the search for missing teenager, Skylar Niece. Star City police detectives spot a car matching the one seen at the niece's apartment at 12:30 a.m. on July 6th, the night Skylar disappeared. The car is heading towards the apartments, a critical clue in the investigation. Just 9 minutes later, the exact same car drives past the Sheetz convenience store camera in the opposite direction, heading towards Blacksville. The shape and color match the car that picked Skylar up. Detectives cross-reference the time the car is first seen with the time Skylar snuck out, connecting the dots in the investigation. Just 5 minutes before the car entered the apartment complex, it was captured on camera, confirming its presence near Skylar's location before her disappearance. The evidence confirmed what detectives had suspected. Skylar had likely snuck out to attend a party. The new video footage from Sheetz provided a clearer view of the mystery car, though the license plate remained elusive. Still, detectives now had a more detailed description of the vehicle, bringing them a step closer to solving the case. Detectives knew identifying the car was crucial. Without it, the case could go cold. They analyzed every frame of surveillance footage, hoping for a breakthrough. The vehicle could be a Mazda, a Mitsubishi, or a Honda. So many models shared a similar design. With countless cars looking nearly identical, Narrowing it down felt like chasing a needle in a haystack. Investigators set out in an unmarked vehicle, combing through Blacksville under the cover of night. Every back road was explored, and driveways were checked in rapid succession. Any car resembling the one in the surveillance footage was quickly photographed, its license plate recorded. Back at headquarters, each plate was carefully run through the system in hopes of uncovering a lead, any connection that could point to Skylar's whereabouts. Meanwhile, as the last known individuals to see Skylar, Sheila and Rachel come under increased pressure from Detective Colbank. Every detail of their late-night drive is scrutinized as investigators search for inconsistencies in their story that could crack the case wide open. Both girls firmly denied attending any party in Blacksville the night Skylar disappeared and claimed the vehicle caught on camera wasn't theirs. To verify their story, Detective Colbank began retracing their alleged route, starting with Sheila. She climbed into the cruiser and guided the detective through a series of side streets, confidently insisting this was the exact path they had taken that night. It was time to compare Sheila's version with Skylar's other close friend. Surely Rachel's story will match. Investigators later sat down with Rachel, only to find her version of events starkly different. According to her, they drove in the opposite direction, taking the main road through Star City. The contradiction raised red flags. Detective Colbank pointed out that Rachel's story might not hold up. There could be witnesses along that route she hadn't considered. The investigator reminded Rachel that the route she claimed to have taken was lined with businesses, all equipped with security cameras. If her story was true, it would be caught on tape. In that moment, a wave of panic washed over Rachel's face. Her expression went pale, eyes wide, frozen, as if she'd seen a ghost. Then came her shaky response. "Well, I was really high, so maybe not." If the girls are considered witnesses, one thing is certain. At best, they are unreliable. Up until now, Sheila had been the family's biggest support, and the police had trusted her account of when and where she dropped off Skylar. But now every detail Sheila provided had to be rechecked. Detectives returned to the security footage from the niece's apartment, carefully reviewing it from the first frame to the last, looking for confirmation of Sheila's story. The investigator carefully reviewed the footage, but Sheila's car never appeared. Watching the video from start to finish, the timeline she provided didn't match up. The way the cameras were positioned, any car passing down that street would be visible. Although the cars might not stop in the camera's view, their headlights would still be seen. Yet there were no headlights at the time Sheila claimed to have picked up Skylar. The evidence suggests that Skylar's friends didn't pick her up or drop her off when they claimed. The surveillance footage clearly shows Skylar leaving her apartment at 12:30 and never returning. Someone is lying about the timeline of that night. Could the girls be lying about the car in the video too? After all, Sheila owns a car that can't be ruled out as a possible match. Sheila owns a 2006 silver Toyota Camry, which matches the color and description of the car seen in the video. It's a four-door vehicle, and the time frame aligns with Skylar's disappearance. The car was in the general area where Skylar lived, making it highly likely that it was Sheila's car seen on camera. Despite the car matching Sheila's description, there are thousands of similar vehicles in the area. Sheila remains adamant that the car in the video isn't hers. Without concrete evidence, there's no basis for an arrest. Cops dive into Sheila and Rachel's cell phone records, hoping for a breakthrough. What they uncover will change everything. It turns out both girls' phones were unusually active after 4 a.m. on July 6, 2012, in Blacksville, West Virginia. Rachel had insisted she wasn't in Blacksville that night, but the cell phone records told a different story, another lie. As investigators pieced together the video evidence and the phone records, the girl's story began to unravel. Then, during one of her interviews, Sheila finally admitted that it was indeed her car in the video. After 2 months of searching for the mystery vehicle, police discover that the owner was right under their nose the whole time. With the teens finally cornered, investigators are ready to press them for the truth about where they really went that night. Rachel admitted they went to Blacksville that night. Skylar wanted to visit a friend, but Sheila and Rachel didn't want to join her. So they agreed to drop Skylar off at the friend's house, leaving her there as they drove away. After finishing the interview with Rachel, the investigator immediately interviewed Sheila. Sheila admitted they went to Blacksville, but she said Skylar got mad because they wouldn't go to a friend's house with her. Skylar left, and they couldn't find her. Once again, the girls' stories didn't match. The very next day, Sheila found out that Rachel had told investigators they dropped Skylar off at a friend's house. Sheila realized this contradicted her own earlier statement. Now the stories were aligning. Okay, we did drop her off at the friend's house in Blacksville. It became clear they were lying through their teeth. As the pressure mounted on Sheila and Rachel, rumors spread quickly through the school. Whispers filled the halls, and it became common knowledge that the girls were hiding something about Skylar's disappearance. Rachel's behavior grew more erratic, becoming hostile toward her friends and mean to her family. In December 2012, her mother, alarmed by her daughter's outbursts, called the police. Rachel was admitted to a psychiatric hospital where the truth began to unravel. 6 days later, Rachel was discharged from the hospital and voluntarily went to the police. Investigators anticipated she would confess that there had been a party, Skylar had overdosed, and in a panic they had helped dispose of her body. They were prepared for that revelation. But investigators were unprepared for the chilling story that was about to unfold. It was far darker and more twisted than they could have ever anticipated. The first words that came from Rachel's mouth were, "We stabbed her." The investigators were left speechless. This was a revelation no one had anticipated. Rachel and Sheila had murdered Skylar. On July 5, 2012, Sheila picked up Rachel and drove to Rachel's father's house. There they gathered a shovel and placed it in the trunk of the car, along with a change of clothes and cleaning supplies. Sheila also brought knives with them. At 12:15 a.m., Rachel called Skylar to let her know they were on their way to pick her up, asking her to be ready. After picking up Skylar, they drove out to a quiet, rural area in Greene County, Pennsylvania, where they pulled over. The three of them got out of the car, and as Skylar started walking back towards the vehicle to grab something like a lighter, Rachel counted to 3. That was the moment they had agreed on. At one point, Skylar, visibly confused and in shock, looked up and asked, "Why are you doing this? Why?" During the chaotic attack, Skylar managed to wrest the knife from Rachel and stabbed her in the leg. At that moment, Rachel stopped, but Sheila continued relentlessly. Sheila later admitted that after 50 stabs, she lost count, her actions driven by something far darker. After Skylar was dead, the two girls attempted to dig a grave, but the ground was too hard and the rocks made it impossible. Unable to bury her, they dragged her body about 44 feet from the roadside and covered it with branches, dirt, and leaves. They then changed out of their blood-stained clothes, disposed of the knives and clothes in the trunk of the car, and left, leaving Skylar's body behind. Skylar's body remained hidden for 6 months, only to be discovered on January 16, 2013. Investigators were left grappling with an unimaginable question. Why would two 16-year-old girls meticulously plan and execute the murder of their best friend? When asked why she and Sheila killed Skylar, Rachel's response was chillingly simple. "We didn't like her, that's all." The case sparked numerous rumors, suggesting that Skylar's best friends were either influenced by drugs, had a secret romantic relationship, or were simply consumed by evil intentions. Skylar's parents were forced to confront the painful reality that their daughter was gone and would never return. The betrayal by her two best friends was unfathomable. How could they do such a thing while insisting for months that they had no knowledge of what happened? The grief was overwhelming, and though they would never truly heal, Sheila Eddy was sentenced to life in prison for first-degree murder, while Rachel Schoaf's confession led to a reduced sentence of 30 years. However, the true motive behind the murder has never been fully revealed by the killers. For Skylar's parents, the haunting question, why, remains unanswered. 2 brief glimpses of a car were all it took for the police to crack the case wide open. Without the video footage, investigators would have had nothing to rely on but statements, leaving them with few leads. People often saw Sheila and Rachel as sweet, innocent girls, and to uncover the dark, evil side of them was almost unimaginable. But it was there. The truth was, that side of them existed, and it was a chilling revelation. The security footage didn't just help police crack the case of Skylar Neese, it gave her grieving parents one last glimpse of the daughter they cherished. If you found this case compelling, don't forget to like, comment, and share your thoughts below. Your support helps bring more awareness to these stories. Subscribe for more true crime content, and stay tuned for the next case. Thanks for watching. Dubuque police officer Brandon Gudenkoff was on routine patrol when he received a dispatch regarding a possible homicide at an apartment on Iowa Street.
This is 911.
Yes, I'm on Iowa Street.
I think somebody had just got killed right here.
You think somebody got killed there?
Yeah, the lady downstairs is hurt. I think killed. I don't know.
Okay.
You just please send the police out here. Get her some help.
The call lacked detailed information, leaving officers with little to prepare for prior to arrival. Upon reaching the scene, Officer Gudenkopf observed a group of individuals gathered outside the residence. He had initiated a conversation with the bystanders, including the individual who had placed the 911 call. The witnesses expressed concern for a neighbor, a woman they referred to only as Auntie.
Call the name, we call her Auntie because that's what we call her. Auntie, she's not responding. We don't hear anything. So we just she walked like a little bit through right there and saw. I don't know what she saw, but she saw.
What'd you see?
Her laying there.
I did not.
She's laying there inside right now? 170, we're going to make an entry as a possible subject down there.
Officer Gudenkopf, accompanied by his partner, entered the apartment to investigate further. The interior of the residence was heavily cluttered, significantly limiting visibility and making it difficult to determine whether anyone might be concealed within the space. The situation was uncertain and potentially dangerous. As Officer Gudenkopf surveyed the apartment, his attention was drawn to the kitchen, where the lifeless body of a naked female was discovered.
Oh my God. Oh my God. 170 stars, supervisor. You got gloves on? Come here, hurry. Oh my God.
Dried blood covered her body, and the surrounding area, including the cabinets, refrigerator, and stove, was stained with blood, indicating a violent struggle. First responders at the scene observed numerous puncture wounds on the victim, along with clear signs of blunt force trauma. The extent of the injuries, including multiple stab wounds and severe facial disfigurement, rendered the victim unrecognizable. The evidence left little doubt this was not a natural death, but a deliberate and vicious homicide. At the time of the incident, Officer Gudenkopf had nearly 4 years of law enforcement experience, yet this was the first homicide scene he had encountered.
Let's just secure it. And we might need to call CID on this one.
The sheer violence and shocking nature of the crime left a lasting impact. For many officers, the first homicide scene becomes a permanent memory, and this case was no exception. Standard protocol was followed upon discovery of the body. Officers secured the area with crime scene tape. This precaution ensured that all potential evidence within the zone remained undisturbed for the ensuing investigation. Officers spoke with the woman who had placed the 911 call, a concerned neighbor and friend of the victim.
Hey, let me talk to you over here.
Okay.
So you came here to check on it?
We always come here after work.
After work?
Monday, to hang around the stool talking to her.
She explained that she became suspicious after noticing the window decorations, normally a consistent part of the apartment's appearance, were missing.
A window always had designs in it,
Yes.
you know?
Okay.
And I'm like, wait, something ain't right.
Sensing something was wrong, she entered the apartment and was horrified to discover the bloodied body inside. She immediately called emergency services. Though neighbors affectionately referred to the victim as Auntie, no one knew her real name. Investigators soon identified her as Michelle. Her family remembered her as a kind, joyful spirit who grew up on a Midwest farm with her siblings. She was described as an old soul with a playful heart, someone who loved Halloween, dressing up, and being near the water. Fast boat rides and festive celebrations were among her favorite things. Michelle's vibrant personality and the warmth she brought to those around her made the savagery of her death even more shocking. What had been a beloved life was now the center of a tragic investigation. Family members of the victim recalled the moment they were notified of the tragic news. One of her siblings shared that the Dubuque Police Department contacted them to deliver the devastating message. Michelle had been found deceased and was the victim of a homicide. The word murdered struck with overwhelming force. A wave of disbelief and confusion followed as questions flooded their thoughts. Who could have done this? Why? How did it happen? It was an unimaginable tragedy, something no one ever expects to strike their own family. Meanwhile, at the crime scene, lead detective Chris Gorell began the detailed and methodical investigation. Upon arrival, he observed the victim lying on her back on the floor. Her clothing had been removed and visible injuries suggested she had been subjected to a savage assault. The scene bore clear evidence of a violent struggle. Several cabinet doors had been ripped off their hinges, and signs of chaos were scattered throughout the kitchen. Detectives noted multiple puncture wounds across the victim's body, indicating she had been stabbed repeatedly. The nature of the injuries suggested that almost any household object could have potentially been used as a weapon. As the investigation unfolded, the scene resembled a complex puzzle, an effort to piece together the who, what, and where of a heinous act. During the forensic processing of the scene, investigators recovered a bloodied kitchen knife, believed to be a potential murder weapon. Every detail was meticulously documented with the goal of reconstructing the series of events that led to Michelle's death and identifying the person responsible for this horrific crime. As the crime scene investigation continued, detectives uncovered additional disturbing evidence. A bent fork, stained with blood, was found among the debris. Upon closer examination, investigators determined that the fork had likely been used as a weapon. The distinctive pattern of the 4 tines matched puncture wounds found on the victim's body, an unusual and shocking form of injury that stood out even to seasoned investigators. The evidence painted a grim picture of the suffering the victim had endured. Nearby, a blood-stained bra was located in the kitchen, and in an adjoining room, a pair of bloodied men's shorts was discovered. Each new piece of evidence added weight to the theory that the attack was both violent and deeply personal. With no clear suspect initially identified, investigators turned their focus to the victim herself. They began building a profile of her life, seeking to understand her habits, relationships, and living arrangements. Questions arose about whether she had a romantic partner, if she lived with anyone, or if there had been recent visitors. The state of the victim's clothing, her shirt completely removed and her pants pulled down, raised the possibility of an assault, shifting the focus toward the potential of an intimate partner or someone known to her being involved. To gather more information, police launched a neighborhood canvass. Officers began knocking on doors, even during the early hours of the morning when most residents were still asleep. This standard investigative step aimed to locate any witnesses who may have seen or heard something unusual in the hours leading up to the discovery of the crime. Every potential lead was pursued in the search for answers to a case marked by its disturbing violence and the mystery surrounding its perpetrator. At first, Michelle Kinney's neighbors were unable to offer any useful information, but a breakthrough came when the woman next door told detectives that Michelle often welcomed strangers into her home. She was known for her generosity, frequently helping people she met at church or in the community who were down on their luck. This revelation drastically widened the investigation. What was once a limited suspect list now included countless individuals who had stayed in her apartment over time. Michelle's kindness, while admirable, had made her vulnerable, and now detectives faced the challenge of identifying who among the many she had helped might have betrayed her trust. Michelle Kinney was known to keep her door unlocked, a common practice in the neighborhood, which raised significant concerns for investigators. The lack of forced entry suggested that anyone could have easily entered the apartment. It began to appear that Michelle, known for her open-hearted nature, may have extended her trust to the wrong person. While investigators continued to explore Michelle's background and personal connections, the results of the autopsy were returned the following day. The medical examiner confirmed that Michelle had suffered a vicious attack, sustaining 41 stab wounds to her head, torso, and neck, along with evidence of blunt force trauma to her head and face. Despite the condition in which her body was found, no evidence of assault was detected. Attention then turned to key pieces of evidence found at the scene, particularly a blood-stained pair of men's shorts discovered in an adjacent room. Detectives hoped that DNA analysis from the shorts would provide a lead, possibly pointing to the identity of the perpetrator. However, they were mindful of the realities of forensic work. Unlike what is often portrayed in television dramas, DNA testing is a complex and time-consuming process. Results from the state crime lab would take days to process, leaving investigators to continue pursuing other leads in the meantime. Investigators returned to Michelle's neighborhood to follow up with additional witnesses who had not answered their doors the previous night. They understood that witness statements can be imperfect, and often follow-ups were necessary, sometimes 2, 3, or even 4 times. One neighbor might recall seeing someone walking with Michelle into her apartment, a seemingly small but crucial piece of information. Investigators knew that relying on a single witness statement would be risky and could undermine the integrity of the case. The continued witness canvass, which extended into the evening, proved valuable not just initially, but as the case progressed. Detectives kept connecting with Michelle's neighbors, including the woman living next door, in hopes of uncovering any crucial details.
You had some information. I know you talked to the officers there that night. So I just want to make sure I have your information correct.
They knew that every bit of information from witnesses, no matter how small, could make a significant impact on the investigation.
Do you know when Michelle would have moved in?
Last summer.
Last summer?
June or July.
Okay.
Investigators emphasized that it wasn't just what people saw that mattered. All senses could offer vital clues, what people might have smelled, heard, or even felt. These sensory details, often overlooked, could provide critical insights into the sequence of events leading to Michelle's death.
Our walls are attached. My bedroom and my living room wall are attached to her living room. And I know I heard Michelle Sunday night fighting with somebody. It sounded like she was upset. Her voice was loud. She was hollering. I guess I kind of blocked out the second voice because, like, I just know her voice. I hear her all the time, you know?
As the investigation deepened, detectives couldn't help but consider the possibility that Michelle had been involved in an argument with her killer earlier in the evening.
You said it sounded like it came from outside in the front.
On the sidewalk.
Okay, in front of your apartment.
In front of the apartments.
However, without more concrete evidence or further testimony, they recognized that identifying the mysterious individual who had been with her that night would be an ongoing challenge. Detectives soon uncovered a crucial piece of information from another neighbor. Michelle had recently taken in a man named Drew, who was experiencing personal hardships and had nowhere else to stay.
How old do you think?
He was right about in his 30s, right about 38, 39, something like that.
Michelle, known for her kindness, had allowed him to live with her.
But as of now, Drew doesn't live here. She kicked him out.
Yeah, kicked him out about a week ago. That's the difference.
This revelation quickly made Drew a person of interest in the investigation. Given the circumstances, detectives began to wonder if Drew could have been the voice heard arguing with Michelle the night of her murder.
Is he heavier set, skinny?
No, he's slim. He's slim like us. Yeah, he's slim.
Does he wear glasses or anything?
I don't want no glasses.
No glasses.
His connection to Michelle, combined with the potential for conflict, placed him at the center of the investigation. As the investigation progressed, detectives spoke to another of Michelle's neighbors, who provided yet another name to investigate.
Hello?
It's Dave Randall from the police department again. You still okay to talk?
Yes.
Perfect, thanks. Had you ever been inside of her apartment?
Yeah, a couple of times she asked me to help her out with some groceries and stuff like that.
Did you know of Michelle to have any problems with anybody here lately?
No, I've never known her to have a problem with anybody. Talk to everybody. She was a nice, sweet lady.
Okay. Had there been anybody else living there with her?
I know she had an ex-boyfriend named Tom that was staying there for a while with her.
Do you remember his last name or anything else about him?
No, I don't know his last name. I know he works right there in that little hot dog spot right there on Main Street.
Hot dog spot on Main Street, the little hut thing?
Yeah, the little hut thing.
Okay.
Broadening the list of potential suspects and deepening the mystery surrounding Michelle's tragic death, detectives now had two possible suspects: Drew, the former roommate, and Tom, a recent ex-boyfriend of Michelle's. While they knew little about Drew aside from his name, they quickly confirmed Tom's identity through Michelle's family members. Michelle's brother was the first to bring Tom to their attention, recalling that he had been abusive toward Michelle in the past. He mentioned that Michelle had confided in him about the relationship with Tom, expressing her concerns about how it had become volatile. Despite attempts to get Tom to leave, he had stayed until eventually leaving on his own. Michelle's brother also remembered hearing that the police had been called on a few occasions due to the escalating tension between them. Detectives tracked down Tom and brought him in for questioning. They aimed to understand the nature of his relationship with Michelle, whether their contact was recent or from a time long past. Their goal was to determine if Tom had any involvement in Michelle's death, to establish his whereabouts at the time of the murder, and to gauge his potential knowledge of the crime.
So
You know Michelle, I guess. Kind of tell me how you know her.
We met through a friend, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. And then I took a job a couple of years ago working for a lady that lived in the same building as Michelle.
And you guys were considered dating, stuff like that?
Yeah, we lived together.
Okay.
Well, it would have been almost a year. She didn't like the fact that I drank as much as I drank.
Tom LeGrand told detectives that, despite their breakup, he and Michelle had continued to stay in touch, and he expressed being heartbroken upon hearing of her death. However, Michelle's family was deeply skeptical of his claims. They knew about his history of alcoholism, and Michelle's brother revealed that Tom had been physically abusive during their relationship, describing how Tom would choke her and even lift her off the ground while intoxicated. Michelle had confided in him that Tom had attempted to return to her life, but she had refused to allow it. As detectives zeroed in on Tom as a key figure in the investigation, he admitted that his relationship with Michelle had ended due to his drinking problem. Despite his insistence that he had no involvement in her death, Tom's past and the family's suspicions kept him under close scrutiny. During questioning, Tom provided the name of another individual that was familiar to investigators, Drew, the former roommate.
Do you know who Drew is?
Yeah, she finally kicked him out. I don't believe he's working right now. He's bounced from couch to couch, I'm pretty sure.
Do you know when she kicked him out at all, or?
I think he had just got out 2 weeks before she died.
While the revelation about Drew wasn't new to the detectives, it added another layer to the investigation. At this point, detectives faced the challenge of narrowing down their list of suspects. The case remained complex, with both Tom and Drew emerging as central figures in the search for Michelle's killer. As detectives continued their investigation, Michelle's family was left to mourn the loss of their beloved daughter, sister, and friend. The wake and funeral were held together, a celebration of Michelle's life that was filled with glitter, sparkles, sequins, and buttons, elements that reflected her vibrant spirit. Michelle's family knew she would have wanted it that way. Many people attended to honor her memory, sharing heartfelt stories about how Michelle had touched their lives. Meanwhile, investigators focused on 2 persons of interest in the case: Michelle's ex-boyfriend, Thomas LeGrand, and her former roommate, Drew. While Tom's whereabouts were known, Drew's location remained a mystery. In an effort to track him down, detectives turned to the city's traffic cameras. One camera in particular was positioned directly in front of Michelle's apartment, providing a potential lead in identifying Drew's movements or confirming his involvement in the events surrounding Michelle's death. As investigators reviewed hours of footage from the city's traffic cameras, they made a crucial discovery. They spotted an unidentified man arriving at Michelle's apartment, helping her carry groceries into the building. The footage clearly showed the two entering the apartment together. Further analysis revealed that the man was the only one seen entering and exiting the building between the time of Michelle's murder and when her body was found. This discovery allowed detectives to narrow their focus, identifying the man as a key suspect in the case. To track this individual's movements further, investigators turned to the city's traffic cameras once again. They followed the man after he left Michelle's apartment, watching as he walked around downtown before eventually entering a bar on Central Avenue. This was a significant lead, as it turned out to be the same bar where police had arrested a man on the night of Michelle's murder. The connection between the suspect and the bar raised further questions, prompting investigators to dig deeper into the potential link between the two. Investigators were able to identify the man seen in the footage as Gary James. He had a history of causing disturbances, particularly at the bar he was seen entering. Reports indicated that he had been causing issues with other women at the bar, prompting staff to ask him to leave. After being found intoxicated, officers forcibly removed him from the premises, and the entire incident was captured on the Dubuque police body camera footage. Upon observing James, officers noted that he was holding a beer bottle in a way that suggested he might use it as a weapon. When officers made contact with him, James became extremely irate and verbally combative. His aggressive behavior, coupled with his obvious intoxication, made it clear that he was becoming increasingly violent.
Put your hands on your back. Don't resist. Just like the popcorn brother. Let's go. Over here. Come on, man. Y'all gonna take me to jail? Yep. What?
James was then taken to the law enforcement center, where his behavior continued to escalate. He became even more aggressive, further confirming that he was capable of violent actions. This troubling behavior raised significant concerns, as investigators now had to determine if his actions were connected to Michelle Kinney's murder. After Gary James's arrest for public intoxication, investigators feared he would soon be released, making it difficult to track him if he left Dubuque. His violent tendencies raised concerns about the potential danger he posed to the public. Typically, after such arrests, individuals like James are held in a holding cell overnight and released the next day after seeing a judge. However, investigators discovered another alarming incident just a day before Michelle's murder. Police had responded to a call from a woman named Pam, who feared James had returned to her apartment after she had kicked him out. This raised further concerns about his violent behavior, which now seemed to connect to Michelle's case.
And what's his first name again? Jerry? Gary.
The woman, Pam, had initially taken Gary James in, but his behavior soon became troubling. His actions led to her growing concern, prompting her to ask him to leave.
Okay, this man done threatened me
I know him. He's
four times. Okay, well, I need him out. Closing on. Sorry.
He began stalking her, which eventually led Pam to contact the police.
Is he up there now?
I don't know.
Okay.
I won't help nobody again. I pray. I don't want.
Responding officers entered her residence with body cameras recording.
Hey, Gary? Gary?
Gary?
Gary?
Gary in here?
3 or 4 minutes, then get out.
Nothing?
Though James managed to escape that night. Meanwhile, detectives working the Michelle Kinney murder case discovered James's current location. When they contacted the jail, they were relieved to learn that James was still in custody. The realization hit he could be their prime suspect. However, before interrogating him, detectives decided to revisit Pam to gather more insight into James's behavior in the days leading up to Michelle's murder.
Well, he said he needs a place to stay.
Yeah, so, until he gets his place.
Right.
He was here from the 7th of July to this past Saturday.
Okay. And how did things go when he was here?
He'll be up all night long, walking the floor, talking to himself, telling me he's talking to Jesus, and he reads the Bible. I don't mind you eating food, but don't eat up all my food, But I didn't know he was taking my knives out of here.
What knives was he taking?
A butcher knife, But I didn't know they was missing until yesterday.
Armed with this new information, they decided to proceed with caution and question James directly. After reading him his Miranda rights, they prepared for the critical interrogation. In most interrogations, 2 investigators are present. This allows one to focus entirely on asking questions, while the other is responsible for recording the responses. Typically, an interrogation begins as an interview, where the goal is to build rapport and get to know the individual. This initial phase can last anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes before transitioning into a more direct interrogation. During James's interview, investigators pressed him on the details of his relationship with Pam.
When was the day that Pam put you out?
She put me out a couple of days ago.
So you were arrested Saturday night.
That was the night she
put you out that day?
They did earlier that evening, yeah.
Okay. What did you do that day?
I didn't do nothing. I was in the house. I was in Pam's house, and I went downstairs to the store a couple of times and went back up.
What store?
There's a liquor store right down there around there on the side.
Okay.
Where the pawn shop and all that stuff at.
What kind of beer you drinking?
Natural ice or Bud Ice, something like that.
Tall boys?
Yeah.
All interviews are recorded using cameras in the interrogation room. These cameras also allow other investigators or the investigations commander to monitor the session from their desks, which proves to be a valuable tool in gathering insights during the process. As the interrogation of Gary James progressed, investigators worked to establish a timeline, beginning with his visit to a local liquor store where he made a purchase. With this information, they continued to press him on his connection to Michelle Kinney. Detectives aimed to extract a confession, but their approach was strategic. They worked to allow James to save face while also keeping the nature of the crime straightforward.
Being new to Dubuque, you might not know it, but we had said that the Dubuque is covered with cameras.
Uh-huh.
You can't hardly pick your nose without getting picked off on a
Well,
camera.
I don't. Only reason I'm here now is because of.
Well, you're smart enough to figure out why you're here now.
You see where we're coming from?
I see you try to say I did something and I didn't do nothing. I think that's what you're saying.
What do you? I'm asking you, man to man, because we've been cool here. What do you think we're saying that you
Don't
did?
ask me. Don't ask me.
To move the interrogation forward, investigators decided to reveal part of their evidence. They showed James a screenshot from traffic camera footage, which clearly showed him entering Michelle's building. By showing him the footage, they hoped to nudge him into confessing.
Who's that?
I don't know.
You don't know that female?
I don't know her by, name or nothing like that.
But that's you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's you, 100%.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Do you know that lady's name?
No.
Where'd you see her at?
Just walking.
You just saw her walking?
Yeah.
Okay. What prompted you to walk with her? Just.
Nothing, but I was helping. She asked me to help her with some bags, and that was it.
Okay.
James admitted that he was the person in the footage and recalled meeting Michelle. He stated that she had asked for his help carrying grocery bags and promised him $3 in exchange for his assistance.
So you helped him take him to her house?
Right. And I didn't go in the house.
Okay. So what did you do?
I left.
At this stage of the interview, Gary James still denied entering Michelle's apartment. He claimed he only helped her to the front porch of the building, but the camera footage clearly showed him entering the residence, evidence that made his lie easy to disprove.
Carrie, we got you walking into her house on camera.
That's you going in the house? Okay.
Detectives knew that exposing a lie they could prove was often more valuable than a confession. Despite James admitting to helping Michelle with her groceries, he continued to deny going inside her apartment.
It's just best that you be honest with us.
I'm being honest
Okay.
with you.
That's you.
The investigators, realizing they had him on video, appealed to his sense of reason. They asked him to help them understand the situation, emphasizing the undeniable footage.
You walk into this woman's house wearing shorts and your sunglasses.
Right.
Okay? You walk out of there with no sunglasses and wearing the jeans that you were arrested in.
Right.
Am I right?
Right.
So where did you change?
I changed that pants.
However, James remained adamant, refusing to admit he had entered the apartment. He was particularly fixated on avoiding any association with changing clothes inside her home. Gary proved to be a difficult suspect to break, and he wasn't willing to provide any information that could help the investigators at that moment.
We haven't gotten the truth out of you yet.
That is
The truth is today as it will be tomorrow.
Detectives believed they had planted a seed of doubt in Gary James' mind, encouraging him to reflect on the type of person he was and the values his mother had instilled in him.
I never killed
You're
nobody.
killing me with this story. I've about heard enough.
Okay, well,
Let's go upstairs.
all right.
After letting him sit with his thoughts overnight, they decided to alter their approach the next day. Knowing that religion was important to James, investigators used this knowledge to their advantage. One detective took a religious angle, telling James that eventually he would have to face a higher power and answer for the crimes he had committed. This shift in strategy seemed to break through James's defenses. The emotional barrier finally crumbled, and James admitted to the crime.
I know you want to free yourself a little bit. Nick talked about freeing yourself and setting things right, holding up some sort of accountability for what had happened here. So what is it that you want to tell me today?
I did it.
You did it?
Yeah, I'm ready to do my time.
You ready to do your time?
Yeah.
And we knew you did it. We were kind of wondering as to why that happened, why it all went down like that.
I was in a rage because this girl put me out.
He confessed, saying, "I did it. I did it. I killed that woman."
Can you play that out like I'm watching a movie? Tell me so I can understand it.
She asked me to help her with her bags. I just went berserk. I went crazy. I jumped on her. I was fighting her. And I started stabbing her.
Where did you get the knife?
I heard the kitchen.
What is she saying? Stop. And you kept on going.
Yeah.
Did you use anything else to stab her?
Nothing but the knife and the fork.
This confession was the crucial piece of the puzzle. He explained that his actions were fueled by misplaced rage, stemming from being kicked out by his former roommate, Pam. Gary James continued to adamantly deny any clear motive or intent behind the crime, and he insisted there was no assault involved. He claimed Michelle's clothes were torn off during the struggle, but offered no further explanation for his actions.
Took the money.
Yeah, got money. She had some money.
But you just took her money. How much money did you take?
$50-some.
$50-some dollars. So this lady lost her life for $50-$60. Is that right?
Yeah.
Investigators, perplexed by the savagery of the murder, questioned how someone could harm another human being so viciously and walk away without remorse. James, after leaving the crime scene, went to a bar and spent the money he had taken from Michelle.
I don't think Jesus like me no more.
No, I would agree that there's some healing that needs to be done, some redemption, if you will.
The stark contrast between his violent actions and his nonchalant behavior afterward left investigators searching for answers. What was the trigger? What had Michelle done that was so awful in his eyes that it warranted her death? Unfortunately, Gary never provided a clear answer. He failed to explain the exact reason for his rage or what had pushed him to commit such a horrific act. Gary James ultimately pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to 50 years in prison for the violent killing of Michelle Kinney. For those close to Michelle, the journey to justice was a difficult one, but it provided some semblance of closure. Her loved ones expressed that despite the tragedy, they found healing in knowing that her killer was held accountable. Reflecting on Michelle's life, her family and friends remembered her warmth, kindness, and the way she touched everyone around her. If given the chance, they would express their love and gratitude, offering her a hug and acknowledging how much her presence meant to them. Michelle's memory lives on through the lessons she taught, namely to always be kind, to not be afraid to reach out to those in need, and to never stop offering a friendly gesture to others. Her spirit, her hugs, and her unwavering kindness are deeply missed. What do you think drives someone to commit such a senseless act without explanation? How can we as a community better support victims before tragedy strikes? Thank you for watching. If Michelle's story moved you, consider subscribing to the channel for more cases that deserve to be heard. Don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments.